Hey everyone, and welcome back. The Web3 channels have been buzzing about the newest game to hit the abstract chain, Gigaverse. This on-chain RPG is set to bring dungeon crawling, strategic battles, and intense crafting to the blockchain. And today, we are diving into the basics. So, whether you're new to the game, maybe just curious about what makes it special, we're going to break it all down for you. Now, for such a simple game on the surface, there's actually quite a lot to cover between facts and speculation. So if you're looking for something specific, make sure to check the chapter links below, or feel free to shoot me a question in the comments. But this week, Gigaverse is actually going to open its dungeon doors to the public. You don't need a new pass anymore. And getting started couldn't be easier. Once they've gone public to allow players to start earning those abstract badges and XP, all you need to do is head on over to gigaverse.io and connect your AGW wallet. You're going to go ahead and choose a name for your noob and be dropped into the Gigaverse where the AI villain awaits, Gigas Maximus. One of the biggest mysteries in the Gigaverse right now are these 7 factions. We're required to join one, but beyond some hints, we don't know much about their strengths, weaknesses, or specialties. All we do know is that each faction is led by a master of the Gigaverse, and they're all based on these one-of-one good luck have funners that were auctioned off about a month ago. But we can do some educated guessing. After all, the Crusader practically screams righteous combat and holy warfare. So it's quite possible that this faction is going to specialize in defensive strategies, healing, maybe even divine buffs. While the Overseer comes across more as insight, foretelling, strategy, or maybe even control. We can think high intelligence stats, tracking, possibly influencing. Can we get a roll for persuasion? Athena, on the other hand, is pretty similar to the Crusader in that she is literally the goddess of war and wisdom, but also crafting. This faction might focus on crafting those weapons, smithing, or strategic combat perks. Honestly, if I had to bet, I think this might be the go-to faction for those who want the best of the best gear. Then we have Archon. If we're going off the historical, let alone the sci-fi references, we're looking at a group of leaders, governance, and supernatural abilities. If it's at all similar to World of Warcraft, I think we're looking at a bit of a mixed talent tree, somewhere between DPS unit and a healer. When I see the Foxglove PFP, combined with the fact that Foxglove is a plant connected to a deadly toxin, I think rogue. We could be looking at a faction that focuses on poisons, alchemy, or even those stealth-based combat skills. Honestly, if I had a chance, I would go back and choose this faction myself. I really love playing the rogue. Summoners seem pretty straightforward, honestly. They typically summon spirits or other creatures into a fight, so possibly a faction that has minions, familiars, or might gain control over opposing forces. When it comes to Chobo, the one confirmed detail that we do have is that Chobo is a pet trainer. This could be a faction that revolves around taming creatures or training mounts, even commanding beasts in battle. So if you've ever wanted a combat pet or an exclusive mount, the Chobo faction might be the one for you. Right now, we don't know for sure what each faction is going to bring, but it's safe to say that they will impact gameplay in a very meaningful way, whether that's through combat advantages, crafting expertise, or exclusive abilities. Did you already choose your faction and you want to switch? Well, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think it's safe to assume that given the lack of information that we've been given to such an important choice, we'll likely be given the opportunity to switch factions once more information is revealed by the team. Once you've chosen your faction, you're going to be dropped into the Gigaverse dungeons. You can get around by using the WASD buttons or right-click with your mouse. You can also interact with the objects by pressing E or left-clicking on the mouse. From here, if you'd like to, you can explore, check every last vase on this floor, only to be told that you can't break this with your noob hands. But once you're done looking around for secret passageways and Easter eggs that maybe don't exist yet, we can go ahead and make our way to the bottom of the corridor to flip that switch, which will open the doors to the Dungetron 5000. Every player receives 240 energy per day, which gradually recharges over time and can be used to play the Dungetron 5000. Each run is going to cost you 40 energy, allowing players to complete up to 6 runs per day. Now, when you enter the first room, there are a couple things to take note of just to kind of get your bearings. Up at the top left, you're going to have your starting health and shield, while at the bottom left, you'll see the 3 attack options with their corresponding stats, and then your opponent's stats are going to be mirrored on the right. At its core, Gigaverse combat is like a gamified version of rock, paper, scissors. But instead of rock, paper, and scissors, we have sword, shield, and magic. That being said, thinking that the game ends there is probably the worst mistake that you could make, and is often why many people are stuck getting past those lower levels. In rock, paper, scissors, there is an outright win, outright loss, and a tie. But in Gigaverse, wins can actually cost you, while ties or even calculated losses can actually lead you to a more advantageous win. And there are 2 key mechanics that really change this from a lucky draw to a strategic battle. And the first is stats. Every weapon is going to have its own attack and armor regeneration stat, which is going to drastically affect your choices in each room. Let's go ahead and take room 1 for example, where when you're just starting out, both you and the NPC are going to have the exact same stats. So, what's the best move? Let's say that we choose shield. Now, if we have our shield up and the NPC picks sword, then we technically win the match. But since shield doesn't have any attack, we're not dealing any damage. Whereas if the NPC picks shield, it's a tie, but we lose 1 shield use for no gain whatsoever. If the NPC picks magic, we lose and we take a damage. In this case, there's no logical upside to choosing shield. So let's say that we choose magic instead. If the NPC picks sword to our magic, we're going to lose and we're going to take 2 damage. Honestly, on the first room, this is the worst outcome. If the NPC picks shield, we're going to win and we're going to deal 1 damage. Whereas if the NPC picks magic, it's a tie and both sides lose 1 magic use. It's not a bad outcome, but also not the best. Magic is risky and it's only the best choice on room 1 if you think the NPC is going to pick shield, which is a bit of a toss of the dice. On the other hand, if we choose sword, if the NPC picks sword, it's going to be a tie and we're both going to take 2 damage. If the NPC picks shield, we technically lose, but since their shield has 0 attack, we take 0 damage and the NPC really doesn't gain anything. If the NPC picks magic, we win and the NPC is going to take 2 damage. Honestly, the main takeaway here is that not all choices are created equal. Each option is going to have its own strengths and weaknesses beyond just that rock, paper, scissors logic. Also, your opponent's stats matter. You're going to need to kind of anticipate what they might pick based on their best possible move. And because we're fighting computers at the moment and not humans, try not to rage quit too bad when they don't choose the logical choice. Now, if adding in stats to our choices wasn't enough, there is another key mechanic that really messes with new players, and that is the overuse penalty. Basically, try not to spam the same move over and over without thinking ahead. If you use the same move 3 times in a row, a red bar is going to appear and that choice is locked for the next 2 rounds, making you vulnerable. Now, you could be forced into a losing or a tying situation if your best move is locked. Also, as the NPCs get stronger in later rooms, getting stuck with only 2 choices can lead to a quick and certain death. But really what I think too many people forget about is that this overuse penalty carries over from one room to the next, meaning that a bad decision now could ruin your next fight. I mean, let's say that you use sword 3 times to clear room 1. Now, when you're in room 2, sword is locked out for 2 rounds and you're only left with the option of shield and magic. At lower levels, you can usually recover from this, but once you get into those higher rooms, it's not going to be quite as forgiving. The best you can do is to try to not let any move hit 0 unless absolutely necessary. When possible, try to balance your choices to keep all of those options available as long as possible. Winning a single room doesn't matter if you're crippling yourself for the next one. Now, luckily, we don't have to live with these basic stats forever. After you win a round, the NPC is going to drop you some loot. And like most dungeon crawlers, the higher rooms are going to hold rarer loots. Items like dungeon scraps can be used for upgrading your character's starting stats, while other items dropped will range from skins to crafting material. But the best part is that before you head into the next room, you are going to be given the opportunity to choose from one of 3 upgrades. These upgrades are going to range in rarity from common, uncommon, void, giga, and really the choice you make is going to depend on your overall strategy. Are you the kind of player who goes for the glass cannon? Well, then you'll be increasing your attacks to their max and trying to one-shot your opponents. Maybe you prefer to focus on building up your defensive walls. Or maybe you're like me and you prefer a bit more of a mixed bag approach. Whatever you choose, the game going forward is more or less the same. You'll continue through increasingly harder rooms until you do finally die. Once you finish a run, you're going to be transported back to the main dungeon, and from here, we can go to our inventory and see all of those items that we acquired. Eventually, most of these items like the bolts, ethereal thread, steel pipes are going to be used in crafting. The team has said that crafting is pretty much ready, but they're trying to release features a little at a time, work out the bugs before they introduce too many new features. You can use dungeon scraps to upgrade your basic skills in the skill tab. At first, you might struggle to get past room 3 or 4 with just those starter stats, but by collecting enough scraps, you can gradually improve your abilities and push deeper into the dungeon. However, there is an important catch. The scrap cost increases across all levels, not individually. For example, if upgrading sword attack from level 1 to level 2 costs 50 scraps, your next upgrade, whether it's for shield, magic, or anything else, is going to cost you 66 scraps. Each upgrade makes the next one more expensive. This means that early choices are going to be critical, so make sure to spend your scraps wisely. Feeling addicted yet? Frustrated by the limited energy slowing you down? Well, there's a solution, because of course there is, and that is ROMs. These NFTs provide extra energy each week and reward you with valuable resources that are going to likely play a major role in crafting later on. Each ROM has 3 key traits that determine its benefits: memory, rarity, and faction. The bigger the memory, the more energy you're going to get per week to go through the Dungetron. If you're looking to really maximize your dungeon runs, higher memory ROMs are going to be a game changer for you. Rarity level, on the other hand, equates to weekly crafting material. The rarity of your ROM is going to determine how many shards and how much dust you receive every week. Now, we don't know exactly how crafting is going to work yet, but these materials are expected to be crucial. And finally, faction. Every ROM belongs to a faction, and the resources it produces match that faction. For example, if you have an Athena ROM, then it's going to generate Athena shards and dust, which you might need for crafting Athena-themed items. Now, there is one exception to the faction rule, and that is the Gigas faction ROMs. These, in my opinion, are insanely powerful because they rotate factions. So instead of being locked into one faction's materials, you can collect any faction's shards and dust each week. You just kind of got to keep an eye on it to see where it's at today versus tomorrow. And that's just the beginning of what the Gigaverse has to offer. Whether you're strategizing your battles, optimizing your energy with ROMs, or waiting for crafting to drop, there's a lot to look forward to, and the team has continued to cook. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing for more Gigaverse updates, strategies, and deep dives as that game continues to evolve. Have questions? As always, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear what faction you chose. I know I'm already considering a switch if the opportunity arises, but until next time, good luck and have fun in the Gigaverse.